Selfish sister. Planned her baby shower on my wedding day, thinking everyone would be on her side. But karma hit her hard, because the family chose my wedding over her. The incident happened a few days ago and I am furious. That's why I've come here to vent. I have an older sister, Portia, 30F, who has a strong main character energy, and she rubs me the wrong way in all sorts of ways. This has been the norm all her life and all my life. And I have generally never objected or said anything, because I've never been one to cause conflict or drama. However, things came to a head on my wedding day, because she decided to have the baby shower for her 4th on the same day. Of course, when I found out a few days before the wedding, I was very upset. I had told my family to the wedding date months in advance, so I knew that this little coincidence, as she called it, was deliberate on her part. It just made me want to pull out either my hair or hers. I had a nagging feeling that my family would choose her baby shower over my wedding, because that's the way things have always worked in my family. She has been the golden child for as long as I can remember, and I was the afterthought. I thought maybe this day would be about me, but with her baby shower, I knew she was going to steal even that day for me. Portia and I, 25F, do not have the best relationship. I would put some of that down to the way my parents raised us, but mostly to Portia's attitude and arrogance. Portia was a geek at school. She got good grades, played sports, and was generally well liked by her teachers and classmates. Mom and Dad were very proud of her. I, on the other hand, was just average. I didn't excel academically, but I wasn't bad either. I didn't have any significant hobbies, according to my parents. And all of this, by the fact that I went to the same school as my sister. All my teachers and even the headmaster were quite surprised that Portia and I were sisters, because I was so different from her. Not only in attitude but also in ability. We were constantly compared and I always felt inadequate. My parents did not take my lack of abilities well. Portia was the favorite child. She was spoilt and everything she asked for was done, because she was a bright child. I was categorically told as a child that I would get the same treatment from my parents if I became as good as Portia. I have a number of psychological, self-esteem issues because of my childhood, and it has really affected the quality of my life. By the time I was 13, I realized that I would never have a good and functional relationship with my family. I just accepted that as my reality and withdrew from the family. I mostly kept to myself. I stayed in my room and spent my hours doodling. It was my only real hobby, and no one ever took it seriously. I was the extra member of the family, always an afterthought, so to speak, always left alone, always looked at with either disgust or contempt. I was not good enough for my parents. I was called a hack, and my mother even tore up one of my sketch pads because I was busy scribbling instead of working hard. And being a source of pride to the family, like my sister. I knew then that no matter what I did, they wouldn't see me for who I was, just a lesser version of Portia, and that no matter how hard I tried, I could never live up to her, and that I didn't want to, so I just stopped interacting with them as much as I could. When I was 13, Portia went to college and she changed. She was no longer the good girl our parents had raised. She was still good, no doubt, but she never returned their calls, didn't want to come home, and she was blowing money like crazy. It all took its toll on my parents, I think, and they felt alone and isolated. They had spent the 18 years of their lives as parents to just one child, and suddenly that child didn't want to have anything to do with them, so their attention shifted to me. They wanted to get closer to me and wanted to make a connection, but I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I was used to being alone, and all this attention just stressed me out. It had taken me a long time to learn to live alone, and I did not want to change that, because my parents wanted to play at being a happy family. It made them angry and it made things worse for me. They would either shout at me or tease me all the time. and it became too much for me. Somehow I managed to get through the next few years, until I went to college. Since then I have had very little contact with them. I got a degree in animation, so I can say that all that doodling really paid off. I got a good job straight out of college, and I'm doing pretty well for myself. This is different from what anyone expected. Especially my parents and my sister expected me to do. So that makes me feel smug about the whole thing. They have tried to contact me several times for the last 2 or 3 years, in the sense that they wanted to get closer to me and things like that, but I have always politely turned them down. I no longer feel a need for them in my life anymore, and I'm more than happy with the little family I've created for myself. I live with my fiancé Edward, 29, and our sweet dog Emma. I have friends, a social circle, and a great life, and I don't want them to interfere with that. A few years ago, before I got my job, Portia got married. Obviously, I was not invited. That is also one of the reasons. I don't take their attempts to get back together seriously. They were not interested in me when I was a student, and now that I am successful, they are trying to make amends and be a family. I can see through their sick disguise, and I am not one to be fooled. I feel they want to get back in touch, just so they can mooch off me. Since Portia doesn't work, she got pregnant right out of college, had a shotgun wedding, and has never had a penny to her name since. The family always thought she would be the one who would bring in the money, because she was the brilliant one, and that I would end up a failure. Now that there was no prospect of her providing any money, they are trying to make amends so that I can be their cash cow. While my parents have been like this since I was born, my extended family is much better off. My Aunt Rachel was a mother figure to me growing up, and she always called my parents out about her favoritism. Of course, these accusations were vehemently denied, but gradually, the whole extended family got to know the real picture of things. They supported my decision to keep a low profile, and nobody really pressured me to build bridges with my family until a few months ago. About 3 months ago, my mother had a very serious health scare. She was in hospital for weeks, and the diagnosis was difficult. Her quality of life has been severely affected since then, and the doctors have said that it will take a long time for her to get back to the way she was before. If that ever happens, this was a wake-up call for my mother, according to my aunt. And the whole time she was in hospital, she was crying for her baby, Amy. I wasn't told about her health problems right away, because we had contact for a couple of years. But my aunt called me a week after the incident to tell me that my mother was very, very ill and had some sort of realization that she had not been treated me well. And since that day, my mother has only cried, wants to get in touch with me again, saying that she knows she is going to die soon and doesn't want that to happen before I give her a chance to be a good mother again. I was conflicted about this, because I knew deep down that the only reason my mother wanted to make amends was because she didn't want to shoulder all the guilt of having mistreated her own child. It was more about her guilt than it was about me. But I also knew that if I did not talk to her, or at least get back in touch, I would end up regretting it. So after a lot of thought, and a considerable amount from both my aunt and my fiancé, I decided to give it and get back in touch with her. It was emotional for us. There were a lot of tears, and a lot of apologies from her side, and I just told her to let it go, and that I did not want to talk about it or get involved in it anymore. My father tried to be polite, and he is too proud a man to admit where he went wrong. So he and I didn't exchange more than a few words. Portia was nowhere to be seen during our little reunion, and I found out later that it was at our mother's request. Mum had vehemently denied Portia's presence during our conversation, and I heard that she was quite upset about it, but there was nothing she could do about it. So now to the actual incident. I was crazy busy with all the wedding planning, and to be honest, I did not make much time for my mother. After the first few meetings, I could have, but I was too stressed with all the workload and needed my downtime as well. My parents were quite offended by the fact that, even after our supposed reconciliation, I had not involved them in the planning of the wedding or given them any of the traditional role that the bride's parents are supposed to have. My mother was upset about the whole situation, but she chose to let it go. I began to feel that maybe she was actually remorseful. My father, on the other hand, was extremely angry that he would not be the one to walk me down the aisle. He even called me to tell me that he was considering not attending the wedding because I had humiliated him as a father in front of everyone. Even after everything had returned to normal, I told him that nothing was back to normal, especially between him and me, and if he felt that this was too insulting for him, he was free to do whatever he wanted. Cannot come. That shut him up immediately, and he didn't say anything after that. As far as Portia is concerned, I had no contact with her during that time. I just sent out the invitations, and she said she was coming. There was nothing more to talk to her about, or so I thought, but I was in for a big shock. 2 weeks before my wedding, I received a frantic phone call from my cousin Lena. She told me she had spoken to Portia, and that Portia had invited her to her baby shower on the same day as my wedding, in the same city. She had booked an hour away from my wedding. Apparently, she went around calling people to the baby shower and not actually sending out invitations because she was afraid the news would get back to me. I asked Lena if she was sure and that she might have made a mistake, but she said she was 100% sure and that some other family members had already received the invitation. She also said that she was making a big show of it and said that since this was her and her husband's last child, it meant even more to her, and that she wanted everyone to be there. When I found out, I was furious. I called her immediately and asked her if this was true, and she said she knew she wouldn't be able to get the whole family together anytime soon, except for my wedding, and that's why she thought it was the best way to include both of our happiness. She said that I should happy that her baby would be able to and attend my wedding. I told her that she was out of her mind and a vindictive witch for doing this. On my wedding day and not even a day before or after. And I also told her that if she had actually had good intentions, she would have asked me or informed me. The fact that I found out about it from someone else just 2 days before my wedding, what she was up to, and how sick her mind was. She told me I had no right to insult her, and that she was free to celebrate her baby whenever she felt like it, and that I did not own the date and what people wanted to do. She said if people wanted to come to my wedding, they would, and if they wanted to come to her baby shower, they would, and that I had no right to stop them. I was at a complete loss for words, and I hate to admit it, but I had a complete mental breakdown. I was just devastated, and I didn't know how to process the information. Edward was by my side, and although he was angry, he knew exactly what to say, and we decided that we were going to send out a message to everyone we had invited. We tried to sound as kind as possible, and the message was something along the lines of how we had come to know that there had been a clash of dates, and that while we were happy for Portia, we knew that some of our guests would have to choose between attending the wedding or attending the baby shower. We also told them to confirm their attendance with my maid of honor, and that, with only 2 weeks to go before the wedding, we were not in the mood for any more drama, and that I would see them at the wedding. I told my maid of honor to keep, who had confirmed their attendance, and that we would adjust the catering and everything accordingly, and that if everyone decided to attend the baby shower, we would just go to the courthouse and get married. I know that seems like an overreaction, but after spending my entire childhood being overlooked. I was 100% sure that most people would rather attend her baby shower over my wedding. I'm glad I was proven wrong. 2 days before my wedding, I spoke to Zara Mimo and asked her if people had confirmed and what the status was. She just told me not to worry and that she had taken care of everything. Her answer was not at all reassuring to me, as I still didn't know how many people had left me for Portia, but she just told me to calm down and that she would take care of everything. On the day of the wedding, I was surprised to see that almost every member of the family that I had sent an invitation to, except Portia, obviously my father, which I had somehow assumed, and my paternal aunt and her family, everyone else managed to make it, including my mother, which was a big surprise to me, because she is not the type to do things without my father. The wedding itself went as planned, and to be honest, I was glad my dad hadn't come. He would have sulked the whole time and caused unnecessary drama, so his absence was actually a huge relief for me. Anyway, Portia could not cope with this flight, especially as she had never been used to it. Just as my ceremony was over and people were leaving for lunch, I saw Dad and Portia coming into the hall. Before I could say anything, Zara was on her feet and stopped them from entering the grounds. There was an argument between them, and I couldn't really hear what they were saying, but I could see that the conversation was becoming more and more heated with each passing second. At one point, Portia even tried to push her way in, and Zara tried to block her as best she could, but my dad was pushing through as well, and she was no match for their combined strength. As soon as Portia stepped inside, she just started kicking like a spoilt brat, and it wasn't just a few straight tears here and there. It was actual crying like a baby. It was so embarrassing and disgusting to watch. I knew my family were aware of her antics, but I felt so humiliated because she was doing it in front of Edward's family, our friends and our colleagues. She kept saying that they all came to my wedding instead of hers last baby shower, and that I should have had the decency to postpone my wedding when I knew she was having her baby shower. Before I could say anything, Aunt Rachel said that I had set the date for the wedding date months ago, and she was the one who was going to hijack the date, and if she had any decency, she would have been the one, would have moved her baby shower to another day. Portia did not expect to be called out like that, and she looked to my father for help, but he was surprisingly calm. Portia then had the audacity to say that marriages break up all the time, and that there was a possibility that I might marry again, but she certainly would not get pregnant again. I was furious, and I wanted to slap her right in the face. I could not believe it. She had the nerve to suggest that my marriage would, on the day of my wedding. I had had enough by then, and I told her to get the hell out of the room, and that she should know that she already had 3 children, and that there was no guarantee that she wouldn't have more children in the future, considering that that's all she's done since she left college after blowing through all of Dad's money. She started screaming, but I cut her off in the middle and told her that she was a terrible person who never thought about anyone but herself, and that I felt sorry for her children for having such a horrible woman for a mother. That quickly shut her up and she started crying again, but I had no patience for her. And Zara and another friend of mine literally dragged her out of the venue. By the time it was all over, I was shaking and crying and she had ruined my day. The atmosphere was so tense that almost everyone cut their lunch short and left. What hurt me the most was that in all that time, my mother had never stood up for me or told me about Portia's plans. So her whole reconciliation was a sham and an act in my eyes. Because she still did not do the right thing by me, even though she had the chance. When everyone had left, I hugged Edward and broke down and apologized for ruining the day. But he held me close and told me it wasn't my fault at all, and that I would I was bound to reach my breaking point one day or another. It has been 5 days since our wedding, and people are reaching out to me, but I am in no state to reply to anyone. There are tons of messages just sitting in my inbox, and I know I will have to reply to them eventually, but I don't want to do it now. We are going on our honeymoon tomorrow, and I hope that I will be able to feel better and take my mind off everything that has happened. My vile sister has already. She ruined my wedding and I couldn't do anything about it, so I can't let her ruin my honeymoon too. She can't influence me like this, even after all these years. Hey Reddit. I haven't updated because I've been on from Reddit during my honeymoon. I didn't expect the post to blow up, and I was overwhelmed when I saw all the comments, but I went through them all. And since you're so invested in the story now, there is a tiny update. The whole time we were on our honeymoon, Ed and I haven't really had any sort of contact from my side of the family. My mother made several attempts to contact me, but I just told her that I would talk to her when I got back from my honeymoon. She has since and told me that she wanted to meet me and apologize to me, and apologize for not standing up for me during the wedding, and that she was ashamed of herself. I told her that this was not just about the wedding, but about the fact that she knew about the baby shower and did not tell me. She said she didn't want me to get upset, and that she thought people would come to my wedding because of the baby shower. Anyway, I told her that her assumptions excuse what she had done to me, and she showed me once again that she is not a reliable person at all, especially when it comes to my feelings and emotions. She kept apologizing, but I told her that I needed from her and not to contact me again. She tried to play the I'm sick card, and I said that she had decided to come back into my life to prove to me that she was sorry. Her actions have shown me the opposite, because she continues to choose Portia over me, even at the cost of sabotaging one of the most important days of my life. She cried inconsolably as I tore into her, and I felt so guilty about it, but I knew I couldn't let her get to me again. It had taken me years and years to feel mentally safe, and I could not allow her to waltz back in with her same antics and ruin everything. I told her that I would reach out to her, but it would be on my own time, and that I did not want her to pressure me into having a relationship with her, because clearly she was not ready. I think she felt that if she sacrificed herself a little bit, she could be strong enough to give in. But when that didn't happen, she gave the phone to Dad, who I had no interest in talking to. As soon as I heard him on the line, I hung up. I disconnected the call. He then sent me a long text message, which I didn't even bother to read and have since blocked him. Blocked him ever since. I just had messages from the family saying that they were sorry that Portia had tried to upstage me at my own wedding, and basically messages of support and sympathizing with me. I haven't replied to all of them yet, but I will. All in all, I feel much better about the whole ordeal, and I'm glad I cut my mother off again. I don't have the energy to deal with my parents, and I don't want them to ruin the family I have built for myself. I thought the drama was over, but clearly that is not the case. Portia's husband, let's call him Jake, turned up at my house last night. He looked quite down in the dumps, and I didn't have the heart to say no, so I invited him in. The first thing he did was apologize to me. He said he had no idea Portia had planned this. Then I remembered, during the whole episode of my wedding, I had not seen Jake. I asked him what he meant, and he said that he had actually planned a baby shower for Portia a week after my wedding, and she had insisted that the date be changed. She had also told him that I had not invited her, which is why. So she wanted to have the baby shower on the same day as the wedding. He did not agree, and said she shouldn't have expected an invitation anyway. To expect an invitation anyway. We had been estranged for a long time. He said that he had never tried to sort it out with me, because he felt that my not inviting her was understandable. and that he would have been surprised if I had invited her. When he found out what had actually happened that day, he was mortified, and it was only because my mother told him that he had found out the truth. He said that he was very sorry and wanted to apologize on her behalf, and asked us if there was anything he could do, anything at all to make the whole situation better. I told him that he had no reason to apologize, because he was not there, and that his wife was a woman who could take responsibility for her own actions. I said that she needed to learn how to take responsibility for her actions, and that if the apology did not come from her, it meant nothing. I told him that I had nothing against him, and that he seemed like a great guy, and thanked him for reaching out to me. I think it was nice of him to come and talk to us, but that still doesn't take away what his wife did. And being frank, even if she were to apologize one day, I know I will never forgive her. She has dug her grave, and now she may as well lie in it. Portia and Jake are heading for divorce. Apparently, they have been having problems for a long time, and her behavior at my wedding was the last straw. She has been running around telling people that I was the reason of her divorce. But I think everyone has had enough of her antics, and no one is willing to listen to her self-pity rants anymore. The last I heard, she was about to move in with Mom and Dad, although it had been made that this would be a temporary arrangement. She even contacted me. She asked me to look after her children for free. She said it would be my penance for ruining her life. I immediately blocked her everywhere and don't want to be involved in this drama any longer. I don't know the details of their divorce, but I do know that Jake is trying to get full custody of all the children because he feels that she provides an unfit and unstable environment for the children's development. I don't know the outcome of their divorce, but I do know that she is in serious trouble, and no one is willing to help her now. So what will happen remains to be seen. All I know is that I am completely out of the picture. This whole mess and my family with it. It's so much more trouble than they're worth. And I had a quiet and peaceful life before they decided to get in touch with me again. The only people I choose to associate with are a few of my cousins and my Aunt Rachel. Because they all stood by me like a rock when the whole fiasco with my wedding. I am beyond grateful to them for supporting me the way they did. They are the only ones, people who deserve to be in my life. And I'm going to be very protective of my boundaries from now on.